This episode of the SSI Executive Conversation podcast is a continuation of a conversation with Ted Bird. To see part one, check out the description in the link below.
Why don't you give us an update of where the company's at, relevant to when we did the webinar and from a progress standpoint?
Yeah, no, that's exciting too, Darwin. So we are right on the cusp of starting our IDE FDA study this year. We have the process to go through with the agency with the submission and some questions back and forth. But our goal is to, I would say, by the second half of this year, we have our sites lined up to be implanting the Triadigm C disc into U.S. patients in the U.S.
Wow.
We've had European approval for actually 7 years now. So the CE mark was achieved actually in 2015, and then they changed the rules of the CE mark with your notified bodies and going from MDD to the MDR.
MDR.
So we had this transition there. We're still in that transition phase to be compliant there, but we have active accounts in a controlled validation rollout in Germany and in Spain. And the exciting thing about the Reg A Plus, we've already had, I'm kind of like the lead person for the company on all the inquiries that come in. I already have a couple of U.S. patients that want to fly to Germany and or to Europe and get the product. They're so convinced. So that's a good problem to have.
Right.
And
It's a good problem.
So yeah, we are on the cusp of getting our U.S. clinical started. We are starting
How
a
many
more
sites
rigorous.
will you have
We'll
and
ultimately end up
patients in
with
that first?
probably 20 sites, about
Okay.
180 patients, 185. That's part of the negotiation with the FDA. But we have 3 leading sites, and we're fortunate to be supported by very well-known, world-renowned disc arthroplasty surgeons. One in Texas, Dr. Rick Geyer. One in Louisiana, Dr. Pierce Nunley, and one in our backyard in Salt Lake City, Dr. Armin Kachaturian. Will be the first 3 sites, and then we'll expand from there. And I always believe in any new product. You walk before you run. Make sure everything goes well. But we're lined up to expand to the next 5, to the next 10, probably end up with about 20 sites.
No, I think that's very smart. You've got to go through a process to make sure that it's safe for the patient and obviously reproducible in terms of the outcomes. So I think that's really smart. That is extremely exciting. I can't wait to kind of see how those studies go. What for when you look at how you've gone through this process, and I know you and I, since we met, have had the opportunity to talk about leadership a lot. I've talked a lot about your previous experiences and some of the mentors that you've had. I put a lot of focus on mentorship, direct and indirect, professional training, how we grow, what we put in our minds. What, as you think about the last year and a half in particular, and this new, I mean, you've been with some really big companies, some really established companies, and then you've also been with small companies, and this might be one of the most unique undertakings that you've done in your career, I would humbly suggest. And I think it could be really, really incredible with the outcome and how it benefits patients. But what are maybe some nuggets you could share with us relevant to the last few years and what you're doing right now?
I think, given what we've all been through, Darwin, since March of 2020 when the world shut down, I think most of us can probably remember our last trip, when we had to kind of quarantine at home and exactly where we were when we heard about, how things were changing.
Absolutely.
We have all learned that we can be just as productive, with our team members and ourselves online in a format like this. 5 years ago, people were like, Zoom, what? Google Meets, what's that? So I think that's been productive for everyone. I mean, you don't have to. There's nothing like face to face, and being able to get to someone and get to know people. But you can be very effective and very productive online, and it's taught, I think, many people that the presence and branding of yourself personally as well as your company on forums like LinkedIn,
Hmm.
particularly in the professional arena, is really important. And the old ways of marketing through cold calling or through snail mail are dead. Are dead, and even professional society meetings are not as active as they used to be. There's a lot of virtual meetings and scientific conferences that go on. I don't think they're going to be dead by any means, but they're certainly very not where they used to be.
I think that is such a smart and true comment. And we've had multiple conversations with some of our different stakeholders here in different articles, whether it be a survey from Master Control relevant to digitization and optimization to improve manufacturing processes. And over 95% of executives over manufacturing facilities said they really don't even have a choice. They're going to be investing in that to create efficiencies because of regulatory and compliance. Their competitors are doing it, and two or three other top reasons. Another recent article, you look at the hospital systems, cost of labor is going up, the opportunity to grow for telehealth, offsite services, home services, cybersecurity concerns, and CFOs. The biggest thing on their mind in that particular article, digitization for optimization. It's everywhere. Regulatory pathway, virtual twins, and I think in my presentation at LSI on talent management strategies, one of the key considerations, I think every single company has to put, they are going to have to determine a strategy relevant to autonomy or a combination of strategies. Maybe it's a little bit more on site at first for certain positions, but uh, you know, uh, Christopher Lafayette did a presentation at the Medical Device and Manufacturing Conference on the metaverse, and that we're more virtual in the last 3 years than we've been in the last 36 years. And so I think those that are not going to have some sort of autonomy, certain positions you have to be on site, but there's a lot of positions, whether it's regulatory, whether it's aspects of quality, obviously commercial roles, program management, people have proven they can be successful. And most of the surveys that we've done, we do a lot of different surveys for our following, just kind of see where things are going, bring more value to our partners. But most people do not want to go back to being in a seat 5 days that after successfully doing their role and performing as a productive team member for almost 2 years.
Yeah. I think talent acquisition and retention. A smart leader, a connected leader, uh, has to understand in 2023 and going forward that they have to engage the digital world, with their team, with their staff, and be
Absolutely.
flexible in attracting talent. If you're based in Phoenix, that you can still hire the best engineer in Boston out of MIT or somewhere else, but he doesn't have to necessarily move to Phoenix.
Right.
And you can have him in Phoenix periodically, but you can still get a heck of a lot done. And again, that all depends also on a lot of other things, of course,
Right.
setting the right culture, setting the right vision, core values to make sure that that person you know is in sync with you and your core values and the rest of your team. No matter what you do, whether it's remote or in person, if you get that wrong, it's not going to work. So,
Well, it depends on where people are at in their personal experience, life, where they're at in their life, and what they need, and then what level of expertise that they have. But leadership IQ in their study showed that only 11% of failed hires were relevant to technical aptitude. The rest, emotional intelligence, poor temperament, don't work well with others, don't want to grow, not open to change, your cultural fit. And after you hit that minimal level of skill that you have to have, hiring for attitude, cultural fit, and ability to grow. I think there's a lot of different aspects that you have to consider. But if you're not going to be open to that, I mean, you look at Blockbuster Video, right? They could have bought Netflix for $50 million,
yeah,
and because they just didn't see it, lack of vision, and they were too attached to the late fees.
Right.
16% of the revenue was had to do with late fees. So, and we all know how that story ended, right? They don't
Yeah.
exist anymore. So, I think that executives and leadership, if they don't understand how disruptive the pandemic has been, and when you look at the investment in digital technologies, whether it be wearables, monitoring, the investment's gone through the roof,
Yeah.
and it's growing at a continuing annual growth rate of 28%. So people people want to continue to get the benefits of telehealth and some of those aspects, and autonomy is not going to stop being a critical factor.
Yeah.
I don't think
I
so.
think it's exciting times. There's dynamic change just in our lives. We've seen from starting out with carrying pagers on our belts to trying to figure out how to use the Palm Pilot with the little cursor pen to everyone having a CrackBerry to the iPhone and who knows what it's going to be, Darwin, in 5 years.
You,
It's
you're
going to be
making
different.
you're making me feel seasoned, Ted, seasoned, because I remember my first respiratory therapy position, and I got my first pager, and I thought I was so cool until it kept
Yeah.
going off, and
Right.
then I didn't feel as cool, and then I had the CrackBerry in my first
Right.
sales commercial role. So, well, this has been absolutely fantastic. I'm so grateful for you being willing to come on and share your expertise and knowledge with our following, and giving us the update, and even with the investment strategy. So I wish you continued success, and I believe you're going to be at LSI here in a few
Yes,
weeks
I'll
as
be
well.
there. I will be there in Dana Point. Look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. And
Absolutely.
and we're in the Innovator Pavilion, so we'll have a table there. Jeff Bennett
Okay.
and myself for all 3 days. Not just doing 8 minutes of glory on the stage. We're doing three straight days of networking. And stop by, talk to me about equity crowdfunding if any of your audience is going to be there. But in the meantime, check out invest.dimacron.com and read all the materials. The lawyers make me say, read
Do
all
your
this
homework
material,
before you
and
invest.
then if you look at that website, we're actually doing an investor webinar next week on Thursday at 2 p.m.
Okay.
Eastern, where the management team of Dimacron will be talking more specifically about the product, about the market, about what we're doing in equity crowdfunding. So stay tuned. Lots of things still coming.
Excellent. Well, safe travels. I look forward to seeing you there and catching up. And I really appreciate your time, my friend.
Thank you, Darwin.
For the video recording of this podcast, along with additional resources, make sure to find us on the web at ShurgSolutions.com and follow us on social media and LinkedIn at Shurg Solutions.